Hi, Georgie.
Hi, Jay.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for spending some time with us. I'm Jay Dennis. I'm the leader of the America's Marketing Consulting practice at EY.
Yeah.
We're here launching our new sub-brand, EY Studio Plus, and so It's wonderful to be here and meet you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm Georgie. I head up marketing for Uber and Uber Eats for the US and Canada, so I run our end-to-end marketing function, and I am here because that's where all the marketers in the world go, is to Cannes.
It's a wonderful place, isn't it?
It's a good place to be.
So where do you reside now?
I live in New York, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, with my husband and my dog. But I'm originally from Australia, as you can tell from the accent.
So maybe we shift to your life in marketing.
Yeah.
So maybe talk about a critical decision, a tough call that you had to make at some point in your career as a marketer, and like how that affected you, what you learned from it.
Oh, that is such a good question. I feel like being a good marketer is a constant exercise in practicing discernment and good judgment on a daily basis.
Yes.
You actually, I think like my role essentially is just making lots of different types of decisions with imperfect information very quickly, all the time. So I'm trying to think of a really good example. Actually, can I tell you a time when I didn't make a good decision?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think I learned a lot from it. We did a campaign several years ago when I was at Uber Eats in Australia. I used to run the brand there in Australia, and we decided to sponsor the Australian Open, which was a fantastic decision to make. The Australian Open is one of the 4 major tennis tournaments across the world. It was actually a really critical sponsorship in normalizing Uber Eats at the time, putting us into the mainstream, which was really important in Australia because Uber at the time was still relatively new and relatively thought of as quite disruptive, pre-regulation. And we did this campaign called the Australian Open in Real Time, where we basically reenacted these ads in real time. It actually won a lot of awards at Cannes, and it was fantastic. We partnered with all the different tennis players themselves. The week that they got to the Australian Open, we shot them in the exact same outfits they'd be wearing throughout the tournament, on the same courts, with the same cameras they used to shoot each match. And we actually had them look like they were in the middle of one of their tennis games, and then they would break the fourth wall, speak to camera, and do an ad for Uber Eats. And it was at the time it did very, very well, as you can imagine. The next year when we decided to renew our sponsorship with the Australian Open, we made the decision to redo that campaign and to try and breathe fresh life into it. And it wasn't the right decision because we were essentially, it was an example of when we couldn't find a way to bring new energy and new insight into a campaign that would give something back to the consumer. Mm-hmm. What I learned from that was that if you don't have a really good idea before you enter into a sponsorship, particularly something as marquee as like the Australian Open, you should probably rethink whether you're going to do it if you're going to be idea first. So that was actually a really pivotal lesson for me in just practicing a bit more discernment and judgment around what sponsorships to do and when to bring creative back versus when to kind of find new life somewhere else.
That's really interesting. With such a trend towards reusing content, reusing themes, finding more efficient ways to bring the creative budgets, what a great lesson to share.
Which we actually do, and I believe in that a lot. I think there's just a time and a place.
Talk about that balance then. How do you find it?
I actually think a problem that we had, or something that we probably weren't doing well enough until recently, was we were getting bored with our own creative too quickly, but actually before the creative was hitting the point of wear and tear, which is also quite hard to measure. So it's a bit of an art and science to understand when you're at that point. And we would almost like clockwork, almost on an annual basis, because that was driving our marketing calendars, refresh the creative or refresh the campaign that was in market, often still within the same strategy, even within the same platform. And we just, I think we got to the realization within a couple of years that we were turning creative over too quickly. And actually what we should be doing is relicensing it, keeping it in market, staying the course, actually building memory codes and memory structures with consumers, and leveraging the creative budget that we otherwise would have used into more spike moments and into other fresh, innovative concepts and ideas across the business. So that's something that we do a lot now, and we're much better at balancing that. I think what's important is if you're looking to reignite a creative idea that is within a marquee moment, like you would never use the same concept for a Super Bowl ad twice. Obviously, that makes sense, right? There are times in which it's actually really important to have fresh concepts relaunch into the world. But I think that you should proceed with caution if you're thinking about turning work off too quickly, because you actually need it to almost become normalized and boring for people, because that's when you've actually created the brand equity and the memory structure.
What an amazing lesson.
Yeah, it was.
All of that from
a bad decision around the 10 years ago.
I love it.
Here we are.
So talk about Uber as a disruptor for a little bit. You know, you've become synonymous with ride hailing. I think when people think of Uber, they think of this incredibly disruptive and innovative brand.
Yeah.
How is that making its way into your campaigns? And is there a campaign? You mentioned Super Bowl, maybe this would be your answer, but like, what are some really successful campaigns that come to mind for you?
Yeah, so I've been lucky enough to work at Uber for 10 years, actually a decade now. And the thing that is true about Uber, I've been with it for many of its eras. And the thing that is still true about Uber and what is core to its DNA is it's a very, very ambitious company. You can't work there and not be ready for kind of the ride of your life. It moves at a speed and a pace that surprises, you know, most people that come and work there. Even when we prepare them, we move very, very quickly. We make decisions very quickly. We're very responsible and thoughtful about how we get to the right decision, but I think, you know, what continues to be our special sauce and our, you know, what powers the company is just how ambitious it is, and how therefore that actually drives innovation, because to have innovation for innovation's sake is obviously great, but to get to innovation, you actually have to be willing to take risks. You have to have the appetite, and that all comes from ambition. And so that's something that's still true about Uber today, and that has flown through into its marketing. When I first started working at Uber, I started in marketing, but we didn't do big traditional marketing. We actually didn't need to. You know, just the organic growth, because the product market fit was so strong, the way that we were disrupting the industry. Now, over time, you get to a point where marketing is not just about growth, it's also about trust and reputation and protecting for the future and building your brand narrative. And then when you launch new and different products like Uber Eats, you know, you have to actually explain to the world that, yes, you know us for ride sharing, but actually we can also deliver your food in 25 minutes and it will be hot. And it'll be very high quality from these amazing restaurants you've never usually been able to access for takeaway. And so we really start to push into the marketing world. And from day one, the leadership in the organization was ready to take pretty big leaps of faith on really big brand work that was pretty resource intensive. You know, they weren't small investment decisions, but take very big swings from day one, and actually wait it out as well whilst we figured out through execution what our brand was and how we should show up. And that has led to, I think, Uber Eats around the world, not just, you know, in the US, Uber Eats does some amazing work around the world. And I think that's the mark of the true brand that understands, and a great business that understands actually how to get the best out of marketing, is that it's able to come to life in different ways in basically all countries that it operates in. Some of the way I'm most proud of, that I think has been the most innovative, I mean, look, doing a Super Bowl campaign is such a feat. It's such a scary proposition, because you either do your job, thank you for doing your job, or it's very underwhelming, people don't like it, it's actually counterproductive for the brand.
It can be risky for CMO, can't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And it requires and demands everything of you, because everybody is at their best, people take it very seriously, you have to. All eyes are on it, not just because of the investment, but because everybody is watching. And so if you take a misstep, the stakes are actually quite high. So doing a Super Bowl once is something, doing it 5 years in a row, which is what we've done, has been quite incredible. I think, you know, I'm sure everybody has an opinion about which ads they like and which ads they don't. But certainly the most recent ad that we did with Matthew McConaughey, our Footballers for Free campaign, is the one that I'm most proudest of. And you know, it was a behemoth of a shoot, and it was actually very difficult to pull off because of the number of different brand partners that we had to get involved. We had over 80 different partners involved across the course of the whole campaign. So, yeah, that's what I'm most proud of.
Well, it was an amazing campaign.
Thank you.
And it's receiving so much attention and accolades here in Cannes, so it's well deserved.
Yeah, so far so good.
I'm curious, there's so much in what you just said. This is maybe going a little off script, but what advice would you have for CMOs who maybe don't have that innovative culture, maybe they are having to justify to their CEO or to their CFO why the investment needs to be made. What advice would you have to that CMO or to that marketer to sort of like really get the institutional buy-in or to make the proper investments into the branding?
It's obviously the dynamic is, and the relationships and stakeholder, management realities are different at every company. I think what has been true for me, and I go through this every time we do a big campaign where I really ready myself for it and make sure that I'm compartmentalizing and focusing on the right thing, because what is always true, I think, is the work wins.
Yeah.
No matter how skeptical your stakeholders, if the work that you put out into the world from the very beginning is consistently excellent, it breaks through, people love it, people talk about it, that goes a very, very long way into selling in your vision.
Right.
Now, obviously, you have to get to that point. You have to get to the point where you're actually making the work. But once you're in the position to make the work, I will always stomach maybe an uncomfortable conversation around the cost of something if I know it is in pursuit of what the very best work is. Because once people see the work, all things in balance being otherwise responsible and diligently done and for the right reasons, once people see the work, that is how they understand the vision, and that's where a lot of the buy-in comes from.
Yeah.
So I think if you can be in that position, that means more than any kind of beautiful business case or deck that you can do about why you should do it. And then in the lead up to actually getting to the point where you're making the work, I think something that has always been true for us, particularly in the early days of marketing at Uber, where we didn't really have a precedent. You were actually convincing and selling into stakeholders that we should be moving into this direction, we should be investing, was really coming at it from a point of view of trying to understand as much as you possibly can what matters to them and being fluent in their language, and not doing work for the sake of doing work, but doing work because it can drive and grow the business. I think that's where you have to start if you have skeptical stakeholders, and then you can build from there. And the work that we just did this year for the Super Bowl, I mean, that's been 8 years in the making. That is brand work with a capital B.
Yeah.
But we have done and continue to do so much work around it that is very, it's about driving immediate business growth. So you've got to make sure you've got that balance.
Yeah. There's so much wisdom in that. I'm curious though, at EY Studio Plus, we work across all of the stakeholders in the enterprise, and most people associate EY with the finance function, the tax function, rightfully so. When you talk about what you just said, how do you, for that skeptical business stakeholder, what metrics, what measures do you use to show them what you were speaking of? It doesn't have to be ROI per se, but you really were talking about the attention and the quality of the work.
Yeah.
And that sometimes doesn't translate to the P&L. So how do you kind of match the businessy metrics to things that a finance partner would understand in terms?
So I actually think there's some marketing metrics that are very much business metrics, as long as you can explain them properly. Growing awareness is actually a critical business job that needs to be done. And I haven't met a business leader who hasn't understood that. You have to sometimes actually say, okay, well, when we think about awareness, what we
really mean is
does what number of people actually know that this thing even exists so that they can consider purchasing it or purchasing it? There is not one business leader that I've met in my time who doesn't buy into that being important. So actually just being able to break down and explain, here are the marketing metrics that are business metrics that matter is pretty important. And then actually talking about, with the level of credibility that is appropriate, like what over time that should translate into. And there are multiple jobs to be done across the marketing funnel. And the funnel, obviously the funnel is an analogy. It's not real, it's not linear, but actually just being able to explain, over the course of 12 to 18 to 24 months, how you can actually translate marketing growth into business growth and how it can happen on a shorter time frame as well. That's always something that we've tried to focus on. But, treating our business stakeholders as like the smart people that they are, and actually just explaining to them how we see the world and their business challenges through the lens of marketing has actually always been very effective for us. I find that business leaders reject the very fluffy type of marketing that comes without substance.
Yeah.
You know, when people talk about shaping how you feel about a brand, but they can't ground that in actually tangibly what that means. They might understand the problem and the opportunity, but being able to show here's how we'll actually do that. There's also a lot to be said for, I think, how powerful the creative effectiveness studies can be. We do a lot of creative testing, because it actually helps us build the work. It doesn't get us to the answer, but it helps inform how we'll get to better creative along the way. And again, working with all the business leaders that I do, which is, you know, a lot at Uber, it's an operations and product driven organization. Again, I've not worked with someone who doesn't understand that and see the merit in it and support it. They just need to know that you're grounded in metrics that actually translate into something that matters to their business challenges.
That's such great advice, and I think that many marketing professionals could learn from what you just said. Talk to us about loyalty.
Yeah.
And what kind of role does a membership program or a program like Uber One play into loyalty?
Yeah. So Uber One is, as I hope you're an Uber One member, Jay. If not, I'll get you a membership. It's obviously our membership program. We launched it probably about 4 years ago now, but we really have scaled it over the past 2 to 3 years, and it's been certainly a huge area of focus for us as a business. I think loyalty and membership are slightly different because you can be very loyal to a brand and not be a member. You can be a member and not be very loyal to a brand. But obviously, you know, for the purpose of your question, we obviously believe in membership so much because it allows us to give very real and tangible benefits that are both, you know, monetary benefits, so savings, as well as experiential benefits and status level benefits to consumers based on, you know, their activity with us. It's critical for us, not least because it allows us to actually bring our platform together across delivery and mobility. Because if you're using mobility a lot and you're not yet using delivery, you know, we should reward you for that, but also then use that as a way to incentivize you to move over into our delivery business and vice versa. So it's been critical for us actually in building a much stronger cross-platform play. And then the way that we think about it is, I mean, we're obviously focused on the ROI and the efficiency of it. But more and more, we're really focused on actually what are just the right decisions to make for the long-term experience for the customer, even if that doesn't materialize in, you know, the P&L right now.
Right.
Within bounds, of course, you know, responsible custodians of the P&L and the business and the future growth of the company. But trying to make smart decisions about what actually loyalty looks and feels like and how consumers should be rewarded right now. So experientially, that comes from things like, you know, ensuring we've got the right partners in place, ensuring you can get free priority upgrades with the best drivers on the platform, etc.
What's next for Uber?
From a marketing perspective, I mean, it's Q1, we launch a lot of work. Q2, we build a lot of work.
Okay.
And H2 is just, it's always the biggest half for us. We have a lot of work launching across Uber Eats and our mobility business, as well as parent brand actually, which now sits across the two. So there's a lot of work coming. Another NFL campaign, which we're very excited about.
Looking forward to this.
Yes. There's actually, I've spent most of my time so far in Cannes creative reviews, which is always fun. So pop out into the Palais, head back into the room for creative reviews. But there's a lot of work still to launch, which we're excited about.
Well, we're excited to see it.
Great.
So nice of you to spend time with us. Thank you, Georgie.
Thanks so much for having me. It's nice to be here.